Two of the meaningful use measures, menu measure number 5, patient lists, and menu measure number 6, patient reminders, rely on InteliDOX's ability to search for patients by factors like age and condition, and to generate reminder notices based on that information. Please note that these are both considered menu or optional measures, not core meaningful use measures. In 2011 and 2012, you can skip 5 of the 10 menu measures and still qualify for EHR incentive payments. However, we strongly recommend that you select menu measure number 5, patient lists, because it's probably the easiest of all measures to meet and only needs to be done once. This video will explain how to meet the patient list measure, and because the patient reminders measure is closely related, we'll discuss it as well. To satisfy the patient lists measure, all you need to do is run one report of patients based on information that's been entered in their problem lists, medications, demographics, and/or structured lab test results. Use the new Clinical Search and Reminders report to create a list of patients using any criteria that's relevant to your practice. For example, you could run a report of all patients who are 65 or older, entering over 65 in the patient age field includes 65-year-olds, who have a diagnosis or problem of congestive heart failure, and who are taking or who have taken the drug Lasix. I'm going to erase the settings I entered for that report by clicking on a different report, then coming back to the Clinical Search and Reminders report. If your practice uses an HL7 interface to automatically import lab test results, you can also search for the results of specific tests. For example, you could look for all patients who have an LDL cholesterol level higher than 100. That's it. That satisfies the patient list measure. Easy, wasn't it? Menu measure number 6, the patient reminders measure, which applies only to patients age 5 and under and 65 and up, is also satisfied using the Clinical Search and Reminders report, but this measure requires some extra effort. You can skip this measure, but in case you're curious, this is how you could meet it using InteliDOX. First, your system administrator will need to create at least one set of templates or documents that contain the wording you'd want to include on reminder notices. Second, you'll need to ensure that all eligible patients, that's your 5 and under and 65 and older patients, have a reminders preference set on their patient summary screen. InteliDOX will eventually have the option to send reminder notices to patients using the patient portal, a special website that allows patients to view some of the same information that you can see in InteliDOX. For now, though, you should select Standard Mail for any patients to whom you might want to send reminders. To actually generate reminders, run the Clinical Search and Reminders report and enter the criteria for the patients who should receive reminders. For example, let's say that you want to send reminders to your older patients to get their pneumonia shots. In the patient age field, you'd enter over 65. This will include patients who are age 65 or older. Since vaccinations are recorded using the InteliDOX prescription module and will show up in patients' charts as a medication, you'd enter the name or partial name of the vaccination you're interested in, so we'll enter pneumo in the medications field. In this case, we're looking for patients who haven't received that vaccination, so we'll enter a date in the If Inactive Since field. Let's say that we're looking for patients who have no entries of pneumo in their meds list within the last 5 years. I'm going to click my mouse cursor in the If Inactive Since field, press the T key on my keyboard to enter today's date, then I'm going to change the year to 5 years ago today. These settings should give me a list of all patients 65 and older who haven't received a pneumonia shot in the last 5 years. It's a good idea to create just a list or report of these patients before we start printing what could potentially be a very large stack of reminders. Let's scroll down to the bottom of the screen and make sure that Output is set to Report, not Report and Reminders. It's set correctly, so let's click the Go button. Here's our report of all patients 65 and older who don't have pneumo on their meds list within the last 5 years. We can see from the Reminder Preferences column that some of these patients have no reminder method set on their patient summary screens. Their reminder settings will need to be set to Standard Mail before reminder notices can be printed for them. If you want to print this report so you can update those patient settings, just click this printer icon up at the top left corner of the report. We do have a few patients whose reminders preference is properly set, so let's generate reminder notices for them. Let's close this report by clicking either the X button up here or the one at the top right corner of the screen. The Clinical Search and Reminders report reappears with all its settings saved. Because we want to generate the actual reminder notices now, not just a list of patients who should receive them, we need to change the output method from report to report and reminders. Any templates that your system administrator has created will be shown here. Be sure to select the template that contains wording that matches the settings you've used for the report. Make sure you've selected the printer you want to use for the reminder notices. I'm going to use a program that sends reminders to PDF files that we can view on screen. When everything is set correctly, click the Go button. First, we'll get the report again. Then the actual reminder notices will be printed. As you can see, generating patient reminders is certainly doable, but there's some work involved. And unlike most meaningful use measures that apply to patients who actually have appointments during your 90-day reporting period, the patient reminders measure applies to all patients age 5 and under and 65 and up whose clinical information is stored in InteliDOX. Fortunately, patient reminders are optional in this first stage of meaningful use, and unless your practice normally sends reminder notices anyway, we recommend that you skip this measure for now. When selecting which 5 of the 10 menu measures you want to use to qualify for your EHR incentive payment, we recommend menu measure number 1, submitting immunization data, which only requires you to generate a test file that can be transmitted via email. Menu measure 2, submitting syndromic surveillance data, which also involves creating a test file. Menu measure 3, drug formulary checking, which is automatically turned on when you e-prescribe. Menu measure 5, patient lists, which we demonstrated earlier in this video. And menu measure 9, medication reconciliation for patients who transferred into your practice during your reporting period. If you need help with any of these measures, please contact us here at BusyNet.